In this video, we're going to talk about the slope of a line, and we're going to see if we can understand what it is and how to find it. So the first thing we're going to ask is, what is the slope of a line? Now, most people, when you ask them slope of a line, the first thing they say is rise over run. But the question is what does that mean? What is rise over run? What is the slope of a line? And the best way to understand the slope of a line is to define it as being the steepness of the line. We know, for example, that if you're on a treadmill and you want to change the incline, you're going to be walking at a steeper angle, and you're going to be walking using more energy in order to walk up that particular slope. In the same way, if you're walking downhill, it's different than if you're walking horizontally. So the slope of the line is the steepness of the line. Now let's see how this relates to your concept of rise over run. So here we have slope as being rise over run. And you can see what's happening is it's talking about how we are moving upwards, that's our rise, in relation to how we are moving across. That is our run. So the idea is we are looking at how fast y is changing in relation to how fast x is changing. That's what we're looking at. Now, what does that mean as far as a particular line, if we're looking at a particular line? So let's say we have these 2 points on our graph. And when we say how fast is y changing, meaning how does the graph move from this point up and over, I'm changing my point here, to this point here. That's the question, right? So we can simply count up 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. So we're moving 4 spaces up and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces to the left. So in this case, my rise over my run is going to be 4 over 5. The problem with this is that it's going to be very impractical to have to graph 2 points or graph a line every single time that you want to find the slope. So let's take a look at the slope formula, and this is going to help us find the slope in a much easier way. So the slope formula is as follows. M is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And there are 2 important things to notice about this formula that we're given. The first one is that y is in the numerator. And the second one is that if you look here at your y2 and your x2 and your y1 and your x1, you see that the points are going to line up. So given any 2 points, x1, y1, and x2, y2, we can go ahead and we can find the slope in this way. So let's take a look at a specific example. So here we have find the slope of the line that passes through 5, -3 and -2, -1. Now what I always recommend is that before you plug in your information, you label your points x1, y1 and x2, y2 so that there's no confusion, and then we can go ahead and we can actually plug it into our formula. So m is equal to -1 minus -3 over -2 minus 5. Notice once again, as I said, my y's are in my numerator with my x's in my denominator. And if I look at my points vertically, they line up, -2, -1, 5, -3. So now all we have to do is the simple math. -1 minus -3 is equal to a +2. -2 minus 5 gives me a -7, and that is the slope of our line. And it is important to remember one more thing, and that is that slope is always a number. It is never a variable. You will always have some number, 2 over -7, 1/3, +5, something in that vein. Slope is always a number. So the next question we need to ask is, how do we find the slope of a line if we're given the equation of that line but not the actual points? And the answer is very simple. All we need to do is put the line in y equals mx plus b form. So if we isolate y, meaning get y by itself, and we put it as y equals mx plus b, we have our slope right there. So let's take a look at an example. Let's say we have 5x minus 2y is equal to negative 1. So if we want to isolate the y, the first thing we're going to do is we need to subtract the 5x from both sides. So we get negative 2 is equal to negative 5x minus 1. And then the last thing we need to do is we need to divide each piece by negative 2. And so we get y is equal to 5 over 2x plus 1/2. So now we can see this is in my y is equal to mx plus b form. And we have our slope, which is 5 over 2. Great. So let's talk very quickly about the different types of slopes that you're going to see, because this is going to be important. So the first type of slope that you're going to see is going to be a positive slope. M is greater than 0. And a positive slope is always going to go up to the right. On the other hand, if we have a negative slope, what we're going to see is that it's always going to go down to the right. Now, there are two more options here. That is sloping 0. Well, if slope is 0, we have a horizontal line. And the last option, let's think about this backwards, is if we have a vertical line, right? That's the only type of line that we're missing, and that is going to be when m is undefined. And this is what you need to know about slope.